story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Think Tank. So we're going to take a look at part 2 of Ethan Crumbley's Miller hearing. So if you joined us for the last one, it was a little bit disturbing, maybe a lot disturbing. But this guy, I mean, he's sick, he's twisted. So because court ended early today, we're going to do this. And yeah, trigger warning. But we are getting a lot of information out of these different videos. So let's take a look now. This, yeah, just twisted little kid. Wow, I thought I was a handful.
Yes.
Hey, Dan Maxie. Hello, Nicole.
You talked to the deputies who were on scene that day. You were on scene. Yes. What was the hardest
School
part
is
of that?
boring.
So they were trained to drive right on an active shooter situation, to drive right up to the door of the school and rush in and listen, look, find stimulus, meaning gunshots, screaming, things of that nature. So you saw the officers when they came in and they kind of went down the hall, then he came back and made a left go up. That was because of the wounded in the hallway outside of the bathroom. And they went up there, got whatever information they could, and the young victims there, are pleading for them to help them. And we're trained to push past that. And fine, because there's someone actively killing in the building.
I couldn't do his job for any.
All right, I know those officers, and the most difficult thing for them and something we weren't prepared for is how do you push past a child that needs help? So that was the most difficult part, was bypassing hurt children who needed help.
To show you some screenshots just so we can identify those who are visible. Yes, again, there's going to be sensitive information shown on the screen. Please do not video record this or take any photographs. Thank you, Judge. Thank you.
Can you imagine? I don't even want to see what they're looking at. Families are just torn apart. Like this, he's just a twisted frick and frack and all of that stuff. Oh, heartbreaking. I'm sure this little puke's proud of himself. And yet he can't look at anybody. Another coward. I'm surprised he's not looking. Get a little thrill. Wow. Come on, you little bastard. Look up. Brutal.
Yeah. Upon arrest, officers noticed he had toilet paper tissues in both ears.
So he made his own earplugs before he committed the shooting.
Yes.
That's a good question.
We're going to admit, but not show today, the in-car recording of the defendant that's judged as 42, the booking room and interview room video of the defendant. You've seen those videos, though.
Yes.
Did the defendant display any emotion when he was transported from the high school substation?
No.
Now, as the officer in
No
charge,
emotion.
you're also giving updates on the defendant as he's been housed in Oakland County Jail for the last 20-some months.
Yes.
I'm going to talk to you. I think
He can't even put his head up to look at the people that he has hurt. You know, he sounded like he wanted to be all tough. Well, he's not looking so tough now, is he?
if the defense wants to submit all the records, that's fine with me. I want to talk to you about one specific incident, and that is when the defendant bypassed security on the jail tablet, courtroom tablet that inmates are allowed to use. Can you tell me about that, please?
Yes. So he was given a tablet to use. GED, you know, there's several reasons they're allowed to use it for, and he was able to access the internet on it, and immediately went to a website that we know to be about real death, killings.
So this is a website. We're not going to name it. Detective Gromsky from Computer Crimes. He'll be here later to testify in more broad terms about the forensic download. But the website, the particular website that he immediately looked at, he bypassed security on the Oakland County Jail tablet. That's the same website that he had
Hey, Shauna.
hundreds of times before the shooting.
Yes.
And that website features death, gore, and videos of animals being boiled alive, school shootings, things that people upload to that website.
Yes. Real life torture, death.
Brutal.
Executions.
Yes.
And that, judge for the record, that's Exhibit 44.
I get in trouble for the word shite.
export from the extraction of that particular tablet, and that indicates also that the defendant, after he viewed that, it was 38 times, he deleted his search history after.
He did. Yes.
And at some point, another juvenile got a hold of that particular tablet, and the other juvenile was the one caught with it. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell me what happened?
The other juvenile was after the defendant was done with it, they gave it to the other juvenile. The other juvenile was Instagram living from inside of his room. Our investigators became aware of it, and that's how we tracked it back.
The defendant was interviewed about this incident, and he's the one. He admitted to being the one to put in the password.
Yes.
He admitted to he admitted to not being able to resist himself to go on that particular website.
That's correct. He was asked about it. Obviously, was concerning that he accessed the internet. So a investigation was conducted, and he admitted to accessing the tablet improperly, and then when asked about what websites he looked at, he told the sergeant what he looked at and said, I didn't want to. I tried to stop, but I couldn't.
So according to the software that forensically examines the tablet, this occurred January 22nd, 2023.
I believe that's correct. Yes, that sounds right.
So now we are 16 months past the shooting. He's still looking at the violent content.
Yes.
Earlier, Lieutenant, you mentioned that this scene was like nothing you've ever experienced, nothing you've ever encountered. Just if you could kind of paint us a picture of when you got to the scene. First of all, how many people called 911 that day?
It was over 100, like in the immediacy directly after that incident.
How many first responders arrived on scene?
We're somewhere over 500 first responders showed up.
And over 100 paramedic EMS personnel?
Yep. Yes.
Tell us a little bit, if you could, paint the picture for us of what it was like when you got out of your car and you realized that this was a school with children who were shot.
So when I arrived, there were still kids walking down the road, some without coats, some, they were what I found to be, because I'm not from that area, I don't control that area, but it was the reunification point was the Meyer Super Center there. And so I'm passing all these kids, and obviously that's, again, you see somebody, especially a child on the side of the road, you stop to help. So past all those, we get to the school, and it was chaos. It was officers, being directed to, search for additional victims. There was just, I've been to a ton of crime scenes where, that have been horrible, and you do your job, and, you meet with the officers, and but there was, in this case, it was just this, you looked around and everyone was just, I don't know if bewilderment is the best description, but everyone was just confused and sad. I mean, it was just
Now, those 500 police personnel, that's off duty and on duty, right?
That's right.
You described earlier, a civilian was an off-duty officer.
Yeah, this is brutally sad. I mean, the cops are even a mess, What this kid did, the ripple effects are massive. It just is hard. It's a heartbreaking case.
That's right.
Multiple examples of that.
Yes, we have several of our officers that work in our agency that are in that community.
They responded the same?
They know these people personally.
And when they're clearing, looking for an active shooter, they're not supposed to stop at how far they go.
No, you don't until the suspect's in custody. I mean, I know it sounds callous and awful, but especially the layperson, but you can't allow an active killer to keep killing.
Are you involved with peer counseling and trauma support?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the impact this has had on first responders who arrived.
It's hard to talk about how we suffered when I know there's been a lot more suffering. We had several officers that were not ready to come back to work.
No doubt.
Those are officers who've been to homicide scenes.
Yeah.
They've been to child abuse scenes.
Those, I mean, as bad as it sounds, you know, a lot of times they're not right, they're awful, but you can make sense out of them. You know, it's something you've witnessed before. What this made no sense.
Thank you. Before we get across, what we're going to do is take about a 5-minute break. Who is overseeing the deputies? Captain, if you could please approach.
Hmm. Wow. Just unreal. I mean, he had this planned.
We're going to go ahead and allow the deputies to take the defendant back downstairs. And again, we're going to take about a 5 to 10 minute break to allow everyone to compose themselves before cross-examination. With that being said, deputies.
All righty, let's just do this. And we're back.
All rise.
Thank you. You may be seated.
We're going to go back to head down.
Ethan Crumbley, case number 2022-279-506 FC.
Thank you. Appearances.
Chair McDonald on behalf of the people.
Thank you, Mark Keith, on behalf of the people. Governor David Williams, on behalf of the people.
Paulette Michelle Lofton on behalf of Mr. Crumbley.
Amy Haber on behalf of Ethan Crumbley. Deborah H. McKelvey on behalf of Ethan Crumbley.
Thank you. With that being said, you may all be seated. With that being said, Lieutenant, you are still under oath, sir.
Yes, sir.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Your Honor, I do believe that my cross will go a little longer than the noon hour. Should I just power through or try to stop around noon?
Yes, we'll take a natural break whenever this witness is done. We'll take a very brief lunch break and then we'll continue. You may
Understood.
proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Lieutenant.
Morning.
You're the officer in charge of this case, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And because of that, you're responsible for making sure that all of the investigations are done that need to be done, correct?
Yes.
And you make sure that all of the physical evidence that can be collected is collected.
Yes.
And most importantly, you go over all of the evidence before turning it over to the prosecutor's office, correct?
Yes.
You're also involved as the officer in charge on the cases of James and Jennifer Crumbley, is that correct?
Yes.
And in that case, the parents, both James and Jennifer, are charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, correct? Is that yes?
I'm sorry, miss. Yes.
You would agree with me that the investigation that you did into Ethan Crumbley and the facts and circumstances around his home life and childhood led you in the direction of then investigating James and Jennifer. Is that fair to say?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Sure. Would you agree with me that the investigation that you began into Ethan Crumbley and the facts and the circumstances around his home life and childhood led you to then investigate James and Jennifer Crumbley?
I think that's fair. Yes.
Would you agree with me that it's not often when you're investigating the actions of a single defendant that you would get a subpoena to search the defendant's parents' phones, bank accounts, work emails, HR accounts, contact people that they're having affairs with, reach out to every single neighbor that they have ever lived next to, even outside of the state of Michigan? You would agree with me that that's not common.
Yeah, no, that's not common.
Now, I want to go over some of the evidence that was found in your investigation. I want to first talk about the interviews that were done with the neighbors of James and Jennifer. Your Honor, more specifically Exhibit E in my binder.
Thank you.
Would you agree with me that most, if not all, of the neighbors and landlords that your office spoke with were not fond of the Crumbleys? I don't.
Besides our, did you not need to bring him this one?
I did not.
Do you have an extra one?
I don't, but I can give you my exhibits if you prefer.
The prosecutor's stopping her this time.
There you go. So just to recap,
Thank you.
would agree with me that most of the neighbors, most if not all of the neighbors and the landlords that your office spoke with were not fond of the Crumbleys.
Yes and no, if I can explain.
Sure.
I don't think most of them really knew much about him, but the ones that did know some things about him had a negative interaction for the
Correct.
most part.
So there was interviews done of neighbors in Washington. Your office was able to confirm that Ethan was living with his parents while they lived there. Is that fair to say?
Yes,
Okay. And he was somewhere between 4 and 6 years old. Is that correct?
I think that's correct. Yeah, it seems to be correct.
And you spoke with, or your office spoke with, the landlord in Washington. They called them the neighbors from hell, and that they still owed him money. Correct?
Yes,
Another neighbor in Washington stated that James would scream at Ethan and a stepchild on a regular basis, and Ethan was always crying. Correct?
it says usually crying, but yes,
Another neighbor in Washington said the Crumbleys were always yelling and screaming from inside the house, calling each other names and always cussing. Sometimes they could hear Ethan screaming and crying too.
I'm sorry, where's that at, Miss?
I believe it's on the second set of the investigative reports. It's still in that same section.
Is I see it, yes.
And that in that same interview, that neighbor felt that both parents were too hard on Ethan. She witnessed Jennifer smack him and drag him multiple times into the house by his arm. Correct?
Yes, smack him, the little boy on the butt, correct. And then drag him into the house by his arm, yes.
Your office also spoke with neighbors in Lake Orion when the Crumbleys then moved to Michigan. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, they did.
All right. Roughly 2013, so Ethan would have been around 7 or 8, correct?
Trying to do the math. Yes, I think you're correct.
Math is not my strong suit either. Your office spoke with a neighbor who had actually babysat Ethan when his parents went out a few times. Is that correct?
Yes,
And she told your office that James and Jennifer would also leave Ethan home alone with the dog and the ferret and wanted the neighbor to come and check on him, correct?
I'm assuming it's correct, Miss, because it's. But I'm just trying to keep up with you so I can
I
see.
understand. Absolutely take your time. If you need a moment to review that, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Okay. Do you know what page that's referenced on?
Unfortunately, I gave my copy to
Oh gosh, all right.
investors.
Would you like this copy, Ms. Walker?
That's okay, Your Honor, but thank you.
I see it. Yes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. And in that same report, the neighbor stated she was shocked because parents would leave him home alone at night. He has the highlighted copy. Let me just look at his information number.
I'm sorry, Miss. Is this in Orion or is this in Washington? We're
We're
referencing
speaking of Lake Orion.
Lake Orion. And can you repeat what you asked, please?
Sure. The same neighbor that you just agreed with me that she told your office that James and Jennifer would also leave Ethan home alone with the dog and the ferret and wanted the neighbor to come and check. My follow-up question was, the neighbor was shocked that the parents would leave him home alone at night.
Yes.
You spoke with another neighbor in the same complex in Lake Orion, and he stated that the parents were always yelling at each other. I'm specifically speaking of page 5644.
Thank you. Correct, miss.
And he remembered a fight in the summer when he had his window open and he could hear them arguing about one of them having an affair or cheating.
Yes.
And he could hear things being thrown and a lot of yelling and screaming.
Yes.
That's all from that section. Thank you.
Thank you.
You also spoke to an individual from a bowling alley that Ethan Crumbley played on a league or a team there. Is that correct?
Yes, we did.
And do you recall the discussion with that individual stating that when James and Jennifer would come to watch Ethan bowl, they were unlike most of the other parents. They would drink a couple pitchers of beer.
Beer's gross. Gross.
I actually have a copy of that if it would be easier if I approached. Yeah, approach her.
Yes.
Thank you.
Let me know once you've had a chance to review that.
I agree, Shauna. I can't imagine this kid being as bent as he is and not giving out any kind of signals, especially to people who should know him really, really well.
I reviewed it. Yes, you're correct.
Thank you. Also stated the parents were loud and obnoxious, correct?
Yes, it does.
In your extensive investigation into what Jennifer and James did to occupy their time, it was clear that horses took up a majority of their time. Would you agree with me?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Yes.
And from speaking to individuals at the barn, it was clear that Ethan was not there with James and Jennifer when they would spend hours there, correct?
Yes.
You would agree with me that from looking at the text from both James and Jennifer, that even on the day of the shooting, the horses were a top priority for them.
Yes.
I want to talk about a video that surfaced from the 5-1 diner. Are you familiar with that video?
Yeah. Yes, I'm familiar with it.
Okay. And at some point in your investigation, did you or the officers under you go and actually speak to the owner and operator of the 5-1 diner?
Yes. Yes, they did.
Okay. And at some point, did you become aware of a video that actually made its way onto TMZ that showed Ethan falling pretty significantly?
Yes.
And do you recall in that interview with the owner that she recalled that incident as well?
One second.
It should be page 5724.
Yeah, I got it right here.
Oh, great.
It just amazes me how broken a person can be at such a young age. Oh, okay. I wonder what that was all about, Dandy.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Absolutely. Do you recall that in the interview, the owner of that diner recalled the incident where Ethan fell?
Yes.
All right. And she told detectives that when Ethan started back working after the pandemic in February of 2021, that he complained of headaches and stomach aches and mentioned that he was not sleeping well.
That is correct.
And she also then talked about this fall. She told detectives that she wanted to call 911, but James and Jennifer said that Ethan had not eaten anything that day. He just needed to eat, and that they did not want him to go to the hospital to get checked out.
Yes.
And she did not call 911. Is that your understanding?
It's my understanding, correct.
You also had investigators meet and interview all of the teachers that Ethan had while in Michigan. Is that correct?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that the general theme of those conversations was that James and Jennifer were not very involved in Ethan's education?
That's fair, yes.
Your Honor, I'll direct your attention to Exhibit D.
They really dropped the ball. I don't know how you don't notice that your kid's like this mess. Like you'd think there would be some kind of signs.
I'm going to first draw your attention to the interviews that were done at Bailey Lake Elementary.
Okay.
In the interview there, the teacher recalls giving Ethan extra assignments to be completed at home. Extra reading assignments were not being completed, and that Ethan continued to struggle.
Yes, that's true.
That same teacher also stated that parents were never volunteers, never attended any of the events.
That's what she said, correct.
And she recalls when Ethan was leaving the school district, the parents didn't even reach out to her. Ethan was the one that told her, I'm not going to be in school anymore.
Yes.
I now want to talk about the interviews of the teachers. I believe it's Blanche Sims Elementary School.
Okay.
Isn't it true that the teacher told the parents at parent-teacher conferences that Ethan needed help reading? And the teacher felt that they were not reading with Ethan, gave them the impression that it was the school's responsibility.
Yes, Nancy thought to herself, you could read it. You can at least read to him at home. Yeah. And then she states that, yes, you're correct.
Now let's move to Oxford Middle School. It's correct in speaking with the teachers there that it was indicated that Ethan never had trouble with peers, even though his parents were not present much.
Sure looks that way.
This is,
We're talking about Oxford Middle School,
Middle school.
page
Wow.
5467.
with the phys ed teacher.
Correct.
Yes, the phys ed teacher said he always participated, and never had any conflict with his peers. And he never met his parents and never had any contact with them.
Moving on further then to page 5469. Isn't it true that a teacher reported that Ethan didn't interact with other kids and he struggled with logging onto the system to submit his homework?
Yes.
I'm going to direct your attention to page 5470. Again, these are still interviews with people at the Oxford Middle School. Isn't it true that the teacher stated, it's obvious that parents were not involved, no contact with the parents until the end of the year. This specific teacher emailed the parents when their child needed extra help with math, that Jennifer sounded interested, but then never followed through.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, I then want to move to high school. Isn't it true, after speaking to one of the teachers, that there was an assignment, and I'm looking at page 5590 and then the following page that does not have a number on it.
Okay.
So specifically the interview, ninth grade teacher Getz, I believe is the last name.
Okay, yes.
And she asked the kids what their physical health was like. How would you rate yourself? How would you rate yourself socially? And how would you rate yourself emotionally? And she recalled that Ethan's response was a little bit different. he stated, "I wish my parents were home more."
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about his report cards that are at the beginning of Exhibit D.
Okay.
You would agree with me that for the semesters 2021 into 2022 year, Ethan had C's, D's, and E's.
Yes.
And if you look at the report card from middle school, which is that first page 433, you would agree with me, as of 1 of 20, he had all A's and B's.
I'm not seeing that, miss.
Page 439.
Okay, that's why. All right.
That would be the report card for January 28th of 20.
January 20th, 20. Yes, all A's and B's.
In all the conversations with the teachers from the multiple schools, it was clear that Ethan was not a problem child in school, correct?
That's correct. Disciplinary, you mean?
Correct.
Yeah, correct.
Really no misconduct to report until the end of November.
Correct.
I'm sorry, what year?
2021.
Thank you.
I want to take some time to go over the journal. I know that you went through specific portions with Mr. Keese, but
Okay.
I think there were some important portions that I'd like to take a look at.
I know we've been saying it all the way through this, but how did he not give off red flags? You know, some of the things we learned yesterday is just like, what? So I don't know about this kid. Like, it does make you understand that the parents needed to be held accountable in some way. Where were they? They didn't seem to be raising their son.
So mine are numbered by page. I don't know if it would be helpful to use my exhibit binder, which is Exhibit Q. I don't know. Mine are not pages of the journal. Mine are pages of discovery that the prosecutor listed.
All right.
I apologize for making you fumble with so much paperwork.
It's okay. What is under what tab, miss?
Exhibit Q. I'm going to start with page 775, which I believe is physical page 2.
What you believe is what? I'm saying.
Physical page 2,
Oh, got it.
775 at the bottom.
Okay.
You would agree with me that on that page it says, "I wasn't even scared. I was almost about to say, I'm shooting up the school. I don't care about anything anymore, except I will very much miss my cat Dexter. He is the only thing I have ever loved in a long time." You agree with me that you wrote that?
Yes.
At the bottom in very large font, it says, "Please forgive me," correct?
Correct.
I want to go to the next page, page 776. I'm looking at the 4th line down. You would agree with me that Ethan writes, "I am actually hoping that I get sent down to the office. That will show them that I have given up, and they will keep an eye on me. It will make them see that I am a possible shooter, and so when I do my shooting, they will have something to put for motivation. I have already stopped doing school, so once the school sees my photos of guns and gun ranges on my Instagram, then they will know what's up. Oh man, my hallucinations are really kicking in. I started seeing weird stuff last, I think it's supposed to be week, and now they have gotten worse." You would agree with me that's contained in Ethan's journal.
Yes, I would agree.
Ninth line down in the second paragraph. "My dark side has now taken over." You recall reading that?
Yes.
I want to go to the next page. Mine does not have a set of numbers on it, but it's just the next page in the journal. Would you agree with me that that page states the following? Over the weekend, I actually felt warm for once. I woke up from a good dream at 12 o'clock p.m. after 13 hours of nonstop sleep. I put on The Walking Dead and pet my adorable cat. At that moment, I said to myself, why can't everything just freeze right here? I had just hoped that everything could have ended there and not a second longer. Now I'm back in school and back down the drain again. Is that an accurate reading of the journal?
That is.
Can you imagine how many kids that were not harmed, did not see this guy, and all the damage that is even done to them? I mean, what this kid did is beyond. I don't understand these school people. Like, I don't understand whatever in your brain would make you want to go and harm other children like that. You know, just the stuff we learned yesterday made me realize how twisted this little bastard actually is.
A little bit lower on that page, 8 lines from the bottom, Ethan writes, I am genuinely surprised right now that none of my teachers have contacted my counselor or sent me to the office for not doing my work. Would you agree with me that that's what it says?
Yes, I would agree.
We'll go to the following page, 778 at the beginning. Would you agree with me that Ethan wrote, I just want to go back to the good days when I didn't have a worry in the world? Would you agree with me?
Yes.
A little bit down on that page, another juvenile is named, and it says, that person is gone, so I have no friends. Would you agree with me? That's the 5th line.
Yes, I would agree.
No,
10th line
no,
down,
no.
Ethan writes, I talk to no one. I have very little talks with my parents, and sometimes talk more to my cat Dexter than people. I rarely talk to when I open my mouth, I hear my jawbone crack and my cheeks hurt. I have no life. And I unfortunately cannot read. And no, I think it says future. Would you
Yes.
agree with me?
I would agree.
4 lines down from there in the sentence, in the line that starts laughing. Would you agree with me that Ethan then wrote, I haven't had a real laugh in 4 years. I haven't felt genuinely happy in 4 years. Everyone hangs out with friends, girlfriends. They go to parties and have fun every day of their lives. I can feel the evil around me, and even dogs sense it. Do you agree with me?
I do.
I believe a dog would sense that. 1000%.
Then we're looking at 2 lines down from there. It begins with, all one of my teachers has to do is send me to the office, and I will tell them about the bird head, and I can get help. 1 call, and that can save a lot of lives. My evil has fully taken over in me, and I used to like it, but now I don't want to be evil. I want help, but my parents don't listen to me, so I can't get any help. Would you agree with me that that's what he wrote?
I would agree.
The following page, the very last line, would you agree with me that Ethan wrote, I feel like I'm in a time loop of sadness?
That's how I read it correct, yes.
I'll go to the next page, 780. 3rd line down. Do you agree with me that Ethan wrote, I'm pretty sure that my crush does not like me, to what I thought before. I will never ask her out, and it makes me know more that I will forever not feel the love of another human being, and not even I can love myself as I hate myself, probably more than some people already do.
That is accurate.
9 lines down from the end of that statement, would you agree with me that Ethan wrote, I sometimes even regret about doing the shooting. If I don't, though, then what is there for me? 1 line below that, I don't eat at all, I had a frozen food breakfast burrito for dinner last night. Maybe if my dumb fucking parents didn't get rid of our couch and buy a brand new TV and couch.
Just hateful. Like, oh my God, man. My kid didn't even say the F word in front of me until he was in his 20s. Like, I can't even imagine. Now he's
Couch
big
set
party
we
mouth,
could have
potty.
food. And my 45-year-old dad doesn't have to do DoorDash. I'm on the verge of losing it again. I have so much stuff compacted in a tight space, and it's about to explode.
That is accurate.
Please turn off your device. May continue.
Thank you. I want to turn now to page 783. It's a few pages down.
What?
I want to start in the middle of the page that begins with fucking college.
Okay.
Oh God, college. You apply to 5 colleges hoping to get accepted into one. Then you get accepted. You get to find out how much it costs to attend. Then if you can go, you really only have 10 major choices out of hundreds that actually leads to a good life. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, you're doing bad in a class. Well, fuck you. You still get to pay us for our 2-hour lectures and for the 15 by 10 foot closet we house you in. Oh, you have to give out because you ran out of money. Well, fuck you again. You're going to owe us a debt that's going to take half your lifetime to pay back. Do you agree with me? That's what he wrote?
I would agree.
I want you to flip to page 790 if you could.
Okay.
I'm going to go about halfway down the page, 10th line down. I barely made it through 9th grade mentally as my depression was rough. Then I made it to 10th grade and I have fully lost control. How the hell am I supposed to make it 2 more years when I have already lost my breaking point? This morning I woke up to my mom having one of her worst rants about how we have no money and can't pay the bills. This just furthers my desire to shoot up the school or do something else. I have no happiness or optimism left in me as I am a burden to my parents. Would you agree with me? That's what he wrote?
I would agree.
Hmm.
All right, that is all the journal that I want to go through.
Yep.
Now, your office spent an appreciable amount of time speaking with all of the staff who interacted with Ethan from Oxford High School. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's your understanding that on November 29th, the day before the shooting in first hour, Ethan's teacher, Ms. Kubina, noticed that Ethan was looking at pictures of bullets on his phone and that she sent Pam Fine an email about that, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Your Honor, I'll draw your attention to Exhibit C.
Thank you.
And that following school on the 29th, she was thinking about Ethan and went to look at some of the assignments that he had turned in that year. Do you recall that?
I'm sorry, miss.
Oh, I apologize. Speaking still of Miss Kubina, do you recall that in her interview, she discussed that after that incident with Ethan looking up those things that morning, she went back to the classroom and tried to look at some of the previous assignments that he had turned in.
Yes.
And isn't it true that she actually found an index card that Ethan had filled out at the beginning of the year, and Ethan had...
I think you're right with that, Shauna. You know, he just figured he was doomed right from the very beginning, you know? Doomed before he even started life, really. Yeah, 15 is still a baby. You know, 15 is still pretty young. They're not finished cooking. So, I don't know. I don't know. As far as, do you think he just lost all hope? Is that what it is? And it just made him angry? I don't understand.
Drawn a picture of a person holding a gun in front of a brick building, correct?
Yes.
The gun was erased, but she said you could still see it, correct?
Yes.
She passed this information along to the dean and the counselor by email, and that email was sent that same day on the 29th, correct?
That's correct.
Following that email, is it your understanding that Pam Fine brought Ethan down and discussed that it was inappropriate to look up bullets at school?
Yes.
And in that interview, is it your understanding that Ethan disclosed that he had just been at a shooting range with his mom?
Yes.
And it's your understanding that Miss Fine left Jennifer a voicemail about the incident, but Jennifer did not call back, correct?
That's my understanding.
And in your investigation, you even found a text exchange following that call between Jennifer and Ethan, correct?
Yes.
Where Jennifer tells Ethan, try not to get caught, correct?
Yes.
Now, the following day at 8:45, Miss Fine tells you or tells someone in your office that she receives an email from teacher Alice Karpinski, correct?
That's correct.
That Ethan was watching violent videos of a guy gunning down people while in class, correct?
Yes. Can I
Yes,
reference that
page
somewhere?
300
Thank you.
in Exhibit F.
Thank you.
Oh my God, Dandy, that bird thing just about made me want to vomit.
Exhibit F only goes to 218.
Very well, I mean, do you think there had to be something buried a little bit in his DNA somewhere that would make him this way, as well as the parents being crappy?
I need you to direct your attention to Exhibit C.
See? And what page was that again?
Yes, we are looking at the email that she actually sent. I believe it's page 300. I think it may be a different page because I'm looking at two sets of discovery. So let me just ask the question again, because I don't know specifically if you'll be able to find it in your
Okay,
binder.
sorry.
That's all right. So it's your understanding that the following day, so we're talking about November 30th now, at 8:45 in the morning, Ms. Fine receives an email from a teacher, Alice Karpinski. Do you agree with me?
I do agree with you.
All right. And in that email, she is telling them that Ethan was watching violent videos of a shooting.
Yeah, it's my recollection that it was someone, a person shooting people, but it was a movie. It was a movie. It didn't appear to be a real life event or something of that nature.
Right.
I think that's my understanding of it.
Okay. So a video of a movie
I think
or
you're
some
right.
sort of scenario where someone is being shot, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's your understanding that that email was not just sent to Ms. Fine, but it was also sent to Mr. Hopkins, correct?
Yes.
And who is Sean Hopkins?
He's the school counselor.
It does not appear that action was taken just based off of that email, correct?
That's correct.
So that's at 8:45 a.m. Then at 9:32 a.m.
Can I go back real quick?
Absolutely.
So the action, you mean action with the defendant? No, but I think there was discussion about it.
Okay. But he wasn't pulled down to the office immediately following
You're
that.
correct.
Okay. All right. So 9:32 a.m. Another email is sent, and it's my understanding that that email is sent to Pam, Nick, and Sean. They all receive an email from yet another teacher believe it's Becky Morgan, and that's the picture of the assignment that you were previously shown, correct?
Yes.
So in your multiple interviews with Sean Hopkins, he told law enforcement that he was alerted to a problem by Becky Morgan, who was Ethan's math teacher, correct?
Yes.
And he went to retrieve Ethan at 9:14 a.m. and then takes him to the counseling office, correct?
Yes.
So you're understanding that his backpack with the gun in it was left in the classroom, correct?
That's my understanding.
Now, the document that you were previously shown that caused the concern, it's your understanding that by the time the actual assignment got brought down to the counseling office, Ethan had altered or crossed out the most worrisome things that were on that page, correct?
Yes.
I believe he crossed out the words "help me" and crossed out the gun, correct?
I think that's correct. Yes.
So according to the timeline that was provided by the prosecutor's office, would you would agree with me that sometime between 9:14 and 10:45, James and Jennifer come to the school, they meet with Ethan, and they're in that counselor's office, correct?
Yes.
And is it your understanding that in that meeting, Ethan discussed that he was sad about the argument that he had with his parents, correct?
I don't recall that exactly. I don't know.
Do you recall that he mentioned his dog dying?
Yes, yes.
How about his friend going away for a lengthy period of time?
Yes.
And he told them he had no one to talk to.
I don't specifically recall that.
Do you recall that Ethan's parents acknowledged that Ethan was more sad lately?
I'm sorry, I don't specifically recall it.
That's okay. Nothing in any of the
I
discovery
call
that
bullshit.
any
That's
counselor or
not fair.
staff that you've reviewed, did any counselor or staff member ask if he was suicidal? Specifically ask that question.
So repeat that again?
Sure.
Nothing in my investigation or?
Correct. In all of your investigations, speaking to all of the individuals that were in that counseling session with the parents or in that meeting with the parents, you are not aware that someone actually performed some sort of assessment to see if he was suicidal.
I see. I don't believe there was an assessment. I believe Mr. Hopkins said that he thought there was potential for suicidal ideation.
It's your understanding that both parents were resistive to taking Ethan home with them, correct?
Yes,
Both parents indicated that they had to go back to work.
that's correct.
To the best of your knowledge, James and Jennifer did not disclose that they had purchased the very weapon that was in his backpack for him as an early Christmas gift, correct?
To the school?
Yes.
Correct.
That's interesting.
To the best of your knowledge, neither Sean Hopkins or Nick Ejak asked James and Jennifer specifically if there were guns in the home or if Ethan had access to weapons.
I agree, yes.
Ethan's backpack was never searched, correct?
To my knowledge, it was not.
Ethan's locker was never searched, correct?
I don't think they were even using lockers during COVID, but no, I don't believe it was.
So now, even though we have a child who on day 2 of being in trouble for looking up bullets, shooting videos, and drawing weapons with graphic scenes and actually writing the words, "help me," he was not sent home, correct?
Correct.
CPS was not called, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
You're not aware that 911 was called for a welfare check or a proper evaluation to see how Ethan was doing, correct?
I'm not aware. Correct.
During direct, Mr. Keast asked you about what was in that backpack, and you had mentioned that there were a number of pages. What was the number? I think you actually remembered the number specifically of pages.
Of the
The
assignments?
school
or-
assignments.
Yeah, I think it was 96, I believe.
And how many did you say had drawings of either weapons or bullets on them?
I'm not sure. I can't recall how many. I know there was, because I specifically counted, there was 52 guns drawn in that in that stack of papers, but I don't know how many pages actually were drawn on.
Understood. All right, I want to talk about parents' employment. As part of your investigation, you looked into the current employment and past employment of James and Jennifer, correct?
Yes.
You would agree with me that in reviewing their text messages with each other, money troubles was something that they were dealing with pretty frequently.
Yes, I would agree.
Do you agree with me that James had a spotty employment record, and at the time of the offense, he was working for DoorDash?
Yes.
You also spent a good amount of time investigating Jennifer's employment and speaking to her boss and coworkers, correct?
Yes.
Jennifer did have steady employment, correct?
Appeared so, yes.
In your investigation, did you become aware if Jennifer could have purchased health insurance for Ethan?
I don't recall.
In your investigation into Jennifer's employer, you came to understand that the work had a family-first attitude. Would you agree?
That's what they testified to, yes.
Yes. So in fact, if Jennifer was unable to return to work on November 30th because Ethan had to go home, it wouldn't have been a problem. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding.
It's also your understanding that right after meeting in the principal's office, James went and I believe he delivered an order of food, correct?
It's my understanding, yes.
I want to talk a little bit about the messages between James and Jennifer, and there are a lot of them. Would you agree with me that the messages are replete with discussions on who was picking up alcohol to drink, who was buying cigarettes, conversations about marijuana, and Xanax pills?
I'm embarrassed to ask, what is replete?
Oh, that there are a lot of.
Yes, there was several.
Yes. Now let's talk about the crime itself. As we saw in the video, when the police arrived at the school, Ethan was out in the hallway with his hands up, correct?
Yes.
He had already put down the gun, correct?
Correct.
He followed all the commands of the deputies.
Yes.
He was placed into handcuffs without issue, correct?
Correct.
He gave the officers his name.
Yes.
In the backpack that we described, he did not have any bombs or Molotov cocktails, correct?
No, he did not.
Did not have a knife, correct?
No.
He went willingly into the police car.
Yes.
He answered questions that he was acting alone, correct?
Yes.
He answered questions about there being no bombs.
That's true. Yes.
Was there unused ammunition found?
Yes, there was.
Do you know approximately how many rounds?
I believe it was 18.
After being taken to the substation, at some point in time, Ethan was then taken to Children's Village, correct?
Yes.
You weren't made aware of any issues that arose during transport, correct?
I was not made aware of any issues. No.
You were not made aware that there was any issues at Children's Village, correct?
Correct.
He was then transported to the Oakland County Jail. You were not made aware of any issues with his behavior during that transport, were you?
Correct.
Now, following the crime, after learning of the shooting, is it your understanding that James went home immediately to go and look to see if his gun was missing?
Yes, that's my understanding.
He then called what I believe was an off-duty police officer first before 911. Is that correct?
Yes.
And at some point in time, he called 911 to report that he believed that his son took the gun and could be the shooter.
Yes, that's correct.
And in your investigation, you observed a text around the same time as I'm sure 911 started being called. Jennifer texted Ethan, "Don't do it." Is that correct?
Her text was after the influx of 911 calls.
You also found a text message, James texting Ethan, "Call me now."
Yes, that's correct.
You would agree with me that in reviewing hundreds of text messages between students and parents on that day when the shootings began, that the messages that Jennifer and James sent were unlike those of hundreds of other caring parents.
Yes, I would agree.
In your review of Jennifer's text messages with her coworkers, would you agree with me that Jennifer messages that Ethan isn't going to get out of this? We need to save ourselves.
Yes, that was written, or texted, I should say.
You would agree with me that there are 0 messages where either James or Jennifer thoughtfully discuss that they themselves have failed by not treating Ethan's mental illness?
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Of course. You would agree with me that in your review of all of the messages on James and Jennifer's phone, that there are no messages where they thoughtfully discuss that they themselves have failed by not treating Ethan's mental illness?
I don't recall any.
We were shown footage of 2 different shooting ranges. And you had commented that Ethan had a familiarity with the weapons. Do you recall that?
It appeared to be, yes.
Someone that is 15 years old, are they able to go into a shooting range and shoot themselves?
And shoot themselves?
Shoot by
By
themselves. I apologize.
It's okay. No, they're not.
So is
The company-
a parent's required?
Yes.
A 15-year-old individual is not able to go and purchase a weapon by themselves, correct?
That's correct.
And in all of the videos that you found from shooting ranges, Ethan was either there with mom or dad, correct?
Yes.
And were all the guns purchased by dad in his name?
To my knowledge, yes.
I now want to move to the search of the Crumbley home.
Okay.
That occurred following the incident at the high school, correct?
Yes.
And let's talk about what was in Ethan's room. Would you agree with me that there were 2 silhouette targets with bullet holes in them?
I would agree.
Miscellaneous shell casings in a dish next to the bed,
I would agree.
and an air rifle sitting on a chair.
I don't recall specifically, but I do recall there being an air rifle.
I want to talk about the other weapons that were found. I believe they were found in the shed. The report references that a Woodstock Red Ryder BB gun was found, a 760 Pump Master BB gun was found, an SNR 357 revolver style BB gun, 6 cartridges for the BB gun, and a Witness BB gun with a magazine. Would you agree with me that there was a number of weapons found in that shed?
Yes.
In a search of the basement, would you agree with me that there was a failed marijuana grow operation, which investigation led you to discover that was the work of James?
Did you say failed?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll agree.
In the search of the home, no documentation showing that in fact Ethan had an appointment with a counselor or a receipt from a doctor's visit was located. That's not part of the discovery, correct?
That's correct.
Jennifer was interviewed at her home, correct?
Yeah. You know what? Like even this guy, how can you not feel bad for him? You know, the more I watch, the more I understand why the mom was at least on trial.
Initially, when the police arrived?
You gotta give me a second. I gotta recall some events
Take your
here.
time. So let you remember.
I believe yes, she was first spoken to at her home.
And during that interview, she had told the police that Ethan had been upset because his friend had left and his dog had died.
That's my recollection of it, yes.
Okay. And you were actually able to confirm that Ethan's closest friend, I think Mr. Keese asked you how many messages these 2 shared. It was a lot. It was all day long, every day. You were able to confirm that juvenile actually had left at the end of October without much notice to Ethan,
Yes.
correct?
Correct.
In the interview that was done with James at the home during the search, isn't it true that he told the police that he purchased a Sig Sauer 9mm handgun and he had it hidden in the armoire in the case and the bullets were hidden in a separate area?
That's my recollection.
And after he saw all of the cops, he raced home and that's when he found the gun missing.
Yes.
At some point after your investigation, it was announced publicly that the parents were going to be charged, correct?
Yes.
And instead of walking into a police station or walking into the Rochester District Court, isn't it true that James and Jennifer bought burner phones, ditched their car, left Oxford, and left their son sitting in jail?
Repeat that.
Of
I mean,
course.
I just
I'll
want to
break
make
it
sure I
down.
get them into the correct. Go ahead.
After it was made publicly announced that the parents were going to be charged, they didn't turn themselves into the police station or the court, correct?
No, they did not.
And isn't it true that they bought burner phones?
It's my understanding at the advice of their counsel, but yes.
They ditched their car.
No, they drove their car. They had one car they didn't drive, but they drove the other. of
Okay,
their
so
two.
they left one car,
They left one car.
and I believe, was that at a hotel parking lot?
It was.
Yes. And they left Oxford, correct?
Yes.
In fact, when they were arrested, they were hiding out in Detroit, correct?
Yes.
You also found proof that the parents went to the bank and drained Ethan Crumbley's bank account, correct?
Yes.
I want to talk a little bit about the questions you were asked about the jail and the tablet.
Okay.
I think you phrased it, or Mr. Keys phrased it, that he bypassed security. Is it your
Yes.
understanding that the password was saved but was visible?
It's. I think I don't know computers or tablets all that well, but I think on the tablet, it was, you had to go into the settings, search for the password, and then, but yeah, it allegedly, or from what I understand, it was saved.
And isn't it true that when Ethan was questioned by someone there at the jail, he explained exactly what happened?
It sounds like that, yes.
And isn't it true that he stated he had the tablet unlocked for roughly 2 weeks, or a lengthy period of time before they were actually caught?
That sounds about right, yes.
And in that body camera footage, isn't it true that Ethan explained exactly how he got the password, and that he said multiple times, I tried not to look at that website. I tried really hard.
Yes.
May I have one moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you. Starting with the last question, kind of, so if I'm understanding this correctly, then the defendant couldn't help himself. It's not like,
That's the way I understood it, yes.
I'm going to go back through a few things that counsel asked you regarding the journal. You were asked about a passage where he wrote that he wished that he would be sent down to the office so he would be caught and prevented from the shooting.
Correct.
He actually was sent down to the office twice. Is that right?
That's right,
So he was sent to the office November 29th. He was sent to the office again November 30th.
yes.
He sat in the counselor's office for 90 minutes. His parents were there. And he never once stopped himself from the shooting.
That's all correct.
And in fact, November the 30th, before he ever even went down the office, before he was caught by the teacher, he sent a text message indicating his intent to do something, quote, really bad.
Yes.
Now, you were asked about a journal entry where the defendant expressed not being happy in months. I don't remember the last time I was happy. Where's that effect? Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You watched the video of the defendant torturing that bird.
I did.
You watched the video of the defendant shooting the Oxford High School students. You watched the video of the defendant in the back of the police car after he was arrested. Now, tell me, did the defendant appear happy or sad when he was torturing that baby bird?
Happy.
Okay. And why do you tell me? Why do you say that?
If you watch the video, you'll, again, we talked about it earlier, the inflection in his voice. Also, he writes about literally how happy it makes him to do these awful things.
Now, what about the defendant's demeanor when you observe him after he's arrested in the back of the police car? Is he coherent
Yes.
when he speaks with officers? Okay. Is he crumbling, crying
No.
at any point on November the 30th when when he gave up, when he was arrested in the back of that patrol car, did he appear that he was crying?
No, it doesn't appear that way at all.
Okay. What about his demeanor when he exited the bathroom adjacent to room 258 and he began the shooting? What about his demeanor there?
Well, I mean, obviously I've had the opportunity to analyze this video 1,000 times, and when you follow the defendant's, days prior or whatever, he slouches a lot, but you'll on the shooting video, as soon as he comes out of the bathroom, he's standing as tall as I've ever seen him stand and walk around that school.
You agree with me that he acted with purpose when he exited the bathroom November 30th?
Yeah, and again with confidence, it looked like.
Now, you were asked about some of the teacher interviews, and obviously this is a massive investigation, and I think in total we're at 5 or 6 terabytes of data. Would that be right?
Yes.
Okay. So some of the teacher interviews that you were asked about, they talk about that the defendant didn't have any other problems with the students.
Yes.
So I want to confirm that he was not bullied.
No.
He was not thrown in a locker.
There's no evidence to suggest any of that. No.
Nobody beat him up. Nobody messed with him.
No.
Thank you, Judge. I'm done.
Thank you. With that being said, any reason why this witness should not be excused?
Your Honor, thank you.
Now for people, he was the OIC, so we asked that he remain throughout the hearing.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. You may also stay in the courtroom if you wish.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So guys, that was that. Not as bad as yesterday. That was a little bit, ew. But we're definitely getting a really, really good idea as to what this kid was thinking and what he was up to. So what I'm going to do is next time I've got a little bit of time, we'll take a look at 3. And I mean, we're learning a lot, aren't we? Twisted little shite. Oh, Chopper, I thought you'd be unimpressed. We all were. I was doing the same as you. Like, I was putting it on mute and sitting here swearing at the piece of shit. But yeah, there's no evidence of this kid being bullied. No. No, there's not. There's not. So guys, I am going to stop there. There's a possibility I might do another live later yesterday. Later today. I've got a document that pertains to Rex Shearman, so we might take a look at that later. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this out for me. I'd appreciate that. Smash that bell and that thumb. Get me further into that algorithm so I can keep doing this for you guys. So with that said, I hope you learned as much as I did, because just wow. So with that, we'll see you guys tomorrow in the next one.